Hello and welcome to the United States Patent and Trademark Office webinar series for experienced practitioners. Today's topic is transitioning from TEAS to Trademark Center. My name is Marisa Terrell and I'm an attorney in the Trademarks Customer Outreach Office. I'm pleased to serve as your host today. Now, before we start, I'd like to express our sincere appreciation for your participation today. Believe it or not, we had over 2,200 trademark practitioners, paralegals, business owners, and students registered to attend this webinar. Wow. Some of you joined via WebEx and some of you joined via Teams. We added that a separate platform to accommodate the overflow today. Thank you so much for your participation. Now, after 26 years, the Trademark Electronic Application System, known as TEAS, is being retired in phases. And as part of our goal to modernize our information technology systems, we're currently developing Trademark Center, a brand new platform for trademark prosecution. Now, although the system is still in beta, we thought it would be worthwhile to take a moment to showcase how your advanced TEAS drafting skills translate to this new program. Today, we will demonstrate how to use Trademark Center to file a trademark application with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Plus, we will provide context to better explain why we even decided to retire TEAS in the first place. Before I introduce our experts, though, allow me to share just a few announcements with you. Today's session is being recorded for your convenience. You will have access to the recording in about 3 weeks or so by visiting our website, www.uspto.gov. And let me tell you a little bit about submitting questions today. If you're joining via WebEx, you will be able to use the chat feature to submit your questions to the panelists. If you're on WebEx, you can find that chat window at the bottom right of the screen. If you are joining via Teams, however, unfortunately, you'll not be able to submit questions via Teams. We apologize for this inconvenience. You can submit your questions via email. Email us at tmwebinar@uspto.gov. We are also providing live captions to help everyone better understand the audio. If you're joining via WebEx, you can access captioning in 2 ways. Check the chat box for a live link, or you can also click on the closed captioning icon. You'll see a text bubble with a CC on the bottom left. On WebEx, you can find that chat window at the bottom right of the screen. And if you don't see it, just look to the bottom right and you'll see these 3 dots, and you can go right on in there and check the chat box there. Okay. If you're joining via Teams, you can check your chat window for a captions link that'll be provided by our producer for today, Jay. At the conclusion of this live presentation, time permitting, we're going to open up the discussion for a live Q&A segment. If you'd like a copy of today's slides, well, we've got you covered. You should have received an email from Salesforce with those slides. And if you haven't received them, go ahead and check the chat window for a link to the slide deck. You might notice that your chat feature could possibly be turned off right now, but it will be turned on again when I get done with these announcements. The slides finally will be emailed to you after today's event, around 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're looking for an email from Salesforce, it'll look something like this: USPTO no reply at uspto.gov. And finally, we applied for CLE credit in Virginia for this presentation. As soon as we receive approval, we will email that CLE documentation to you. And that documentation will include instructions on how you can apply for CLE credit outside of Virginia. If you have any additional questions about CLE, that whole process, email us at tmwebinar@uspto.gov. Now, at this point, I have the pleasure of introducing our expert presenters for today's event. Our first presenter is Matthew Schwab. Attorney Schwab is a staff attorney for the Electronic Filing and Public Web Services in the Office of the Deputy Commissioner for Trademark Administration. He currently focuses on policy and security issues related to trademark filing. He also assists with the development of new technologies for the office. Now, Matt joined the USPTO back in 2015 as a trademark examining attorney. He's a member of the State Bar of Illinois, and he received his Juris Doctor and Master of Public Policy degrees from the University of Michigan. Our second expert is attorney Kyle Ingram. Now, Kyle is my colleague. He works in the Trademarks Customer Outreach Office at the USPTO. Prior to this position, Kyle worked as a trademark examining attorney for 6 years. And before joining the USPTO, Kyle worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Prisons. Before attending law school, Kyle served in the U.S. Air Force as a contracting officer. Kyle obtained his Juris Doctorate from the University of Oregon, his master's degree in natural resource management from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, that's Virginia Tech to everyone, and his BA in economics from the University of Virginia. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn over this portion to Matt Schwab. Attorney Schwab is going to go ahead now and present. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa. I'm sorry that I don't get to give you an introduction since you've already been up, but I think a real stand-up person is the introduction that I would give there. Thanks for the introduction, Marisa. And we want to go ahead and get started on discussing some of the topics surrounding the transition from TEAS to Trademark Center. So we're first going to spend a brief, but enough to qualify for CLE amount of time on the history and development of TEAS. And then we're going to go into how we develop Trademark Center, some of our philosophies, our practices, some of the feedback mechanisms we've used, and that we would like you to consider contacting us on as well. Also, we're going to see a demonstration of Trademark Center, including a few new practitioner-focused sharing tools that we haven't demonstrated yet publicly. And finally, we'll end with a Q&A session. So we anticipate having a decent amount of time at the end of this presentation to handle all your questions and provide some answers. So first, we'll move into TEAS history. And you can see here the time span of the first prototype beginning in 1991 to the actual business proposal. In 1991, we had the first prototype of TEAS. And you can see there's a 7-year gap between the prototype and the actual business use of TEAS. So that's a similar gap to what we've had in developing Trademark Center. Oftentimes you'll go through a couple of prototypes before you arrive at something that you're comfortable using and presenting out to the public. It's been a similar journey for Trademark Center. So the first prototype was in 1991. Finally, by 1997 and 1998, they began taking applications through the prototype. So during that pilot project that went for approximately a year, TEAS accepted 228 actual applications as of the end of the pilot in August of 1998. For your reference, that is about the number of applications that we will receive during this webinar. It was fully operational by 1998, and in April rolled out to the public. The initial applications started coming in through TEAS. It was, of course, optional at that point. Everything was on paper before then. So this was a watershed moment for the USPTO. And by October 1st, or by November of 1998, TEAS had accepted almost 2,000 new trademark applications. A very good start for a program that's been in effect for more than 25 years. We have a few other items on here. Step 5, secure electronic transactions. And those are the deposit accounts, as you may know them, and then affidavits and renewals. You see a 3-year gap between September of 1998 and 2001. The initial application started first. They rolled through the sequence and ended with renewals. You're going to see something similar with our progress here for Trademark Center. As with any technology that is 26 years old, TEAS faces some challenges currently. The technology is outdated and difficult to maintain, and this goes not just to the look and feel or the user interface, which are things that can be updated, but a lot of it has to do with what it's able to do on the back end, how the information gets passed into our system, how it gets passed through the system, and copied back out to other systems for other functions. The technology for TEAS is still solid and stable, but it does not give us room to grow, especially now that we have retired TRAM. You may have heard about this or you may not have. It was the talk of the town in IT circles inside the USPTO for a year. we retired our mainframe system that was 40 years old that TEAS fed into. And now with that gone, we're able to expand and offer a lot of the things that people have been asking for years and years, but that we simply weren't able to offer. And this is the lack of modern features that we've had noted on surveys for the past 15, 10 years, 5 years especially. That includes complaints that the form is difficult to read and to edit and to navigate. You have to go all the way to the end to save. It doesn't automatically save. And then there's also a possibility for the saves to not be usable later. Either they time out or they can be invalidated. There's also sort of no running tally of many things, including fees or any sort of summary of the information that you're putting into TEAS. So although TEAS has served us well and will continue to serve us well for the next few years, it is in the process of being retired. This is going to be a piecemeal retirement. So what that means is we're starting with the initial application forms in Trademark Center, and they will be released and be usable side by side with the TEAS initial application forms for a period of time. They're available right now, and we encourage you to go to trademarkcenter.uspto.gov and try out Trademark Center initial application forms if you have a need to apply, or that's part of a business and you do it regularly. You're free to go in and look around and see what we've got to offer. You'll need a uspto.gov account, and you'll need to verify your identity the same way that you need those things for TEAS. And this system will sit alongside TEAS for approximately 6 months, and then the initial application forms and Trademark Center will become the initial application forms. And the TEAS initial application forms will be retired. Now, all the rest of TEAS, it's not just initial application forms. 75% of our filing volume is other stuff. So that's still going to be there, and we're going to follow the same replacement path as we move through. We will develop the new capability at Trademark Center, release it to the public. For a certain amount of time, they'll operate side by side. And then once everyone is comfortable, we'll transition fully over to the new one. But unfortunately for TEAS, it is time for it to be retired so that we can give you all of the things that you've been asking for many years that we're just not able to provide with TEAS. So it does have to be overhauled completely to address these limitations. So Trademark Center development has been ongoing for more than 2 years. It's really been, including prototypes, going on for several years. But the actual day-to-day development work has been going on for just over 2 years. We opened up last year a limited private beta to several customers. We'll talk about that a little bit on a further slide. But one of the things that we want you to know is that we take seriously the feedback that we get. We designed this system with feedback from attorneys, from paralegals, from entrepreneurs, from small business owners. And we do this through surveys that we administer through TEAS and now also through Trademark Center. We do this through one-on-one interviews, and we also do it through feedback from the Trademark Center feedback button. And we also, I should also say that the feedback, we attempt to get a mix of feedback so that we can meet all of our customers. So we sort of have an 80-20 rule at the USPTO for trademarks, like many other business units see. 80% of the filings that come through our system are submitted by 20% of the customers. And those are typically our practitioners or paralegals or support staff, and attorneys, people who are doing this as part of their regular job duties. The other 20% of the applications, though, are 80% of the users who come in to the filing system. And we get very different amounts of feedback and quality of feedback from those two different user groups, as you can imagine. So we have tried to design Trademark Center to accommodate all of those. Our initial launch for Trademark Center is focused more at the people who have had 10 to 15 years of not having their needs met, people who don't understand the system, who can't save, who can't navigate it. And what we are currently doing, and you see we rolled out a few weeks ago with a practitioner-focused update, but we're creating more advanced features, more nuanced features in Trademark Center that will help serve the needs of our daily practitioners too, because they are so important also to what we do. So we do, again, encourage you to go use Trademark Center, and there are many ways to provide feedback on that. You can fill out the Trademark Center survey between TEAS surveys and Trademark Center surveys. We've had more than 50,000 completed surveys so far over the years, and they have all been viewed. We also have a dedicated customer experience team that helps us communicate and reach out to the public. Many of you have spoken with them or worked with them or encountered them in some way. But we have a customer experience team who, along with other products at the USPTO and trademarks, works with us on Trademark Center to reach out and get this feedback. There's a link on the Trademark Center webpage. There's a button in Trademark Center itself. It's over on the right side. It could be called a button, or some people call it a tag or a label. It's over on the right side of the screen, sort of in a vertical orientation. And the number one way to get the most feedback in is to sign up to be a customer experience volunteer. You can sign up using the link at the bottom. Our customer experience volunteers will all be stored in a list that is eligible for contact, depending on what you tell us about yourself. And that's the best way to get contacted by us, to get your input directly solicited. However, leaving comments through these other methods is also a very good way to give it to us. We've never complained that we had too much feedback. We do have limited bandwidth. We don't have an excessively large team working on Trademark Center. So there is a cadence and a rhythm and a timeline for developing out our new functionality. We regret that we can't do it all right away. But we really do want to hear your voice, and I want to express that as much as I can. So how does Trademark Center improve upon TEAS? There are many ways in which it improves. I think most people are going to first notice just the user interface. The user interface is different, it's modern, it's consistent with our other USPTO products. So Patent Center and the emerging TTAB Center, which opened its public beta recently as well, or TTAB Center, if you call it TTAB Center. But the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board and patents also have new interfaces that they've rolled out over the last few years. Ours is a similar design, similar language. If you learn how to use one, you should be able to use the others. Assignment Center is also an example of a new product that's been rolled out following the design language. They don't all work exactly the same, but they have a similar look and feel, similar navigation and functions. Trademark Center, we've added, as an example of feedback, we've added an application preview feature that Kyle is going to show you later on during the demonstration. This allows you to essentially get a preview of what the filing receipt would be, so you can send that out for review and download it and save a copy for your records before you submit your application. We've also increased the character limits in many fields. We have many systems at the USPTO, and we are working on consolidating them. But some of the limits that are in a filing system are not because the filing system couldn't do more, but because there's a system somewhere that would be a bottleneck. So we want to make sure when we add characters, every system throughout the pipeline can accommodate those characters so that the registration and maintenance records are all correct. So we have increased characters where we can, and we do. I won't call it TTAB Center. But we've increased character counts where we can, but in some instances they still will be limited. There won't be a third address field because that is not going to yet be consistent throughout the entire pipeline. We're trying to make sure that the information has a high level of integrity from the intake all the way out to the output, wherever that may be. We've also improved the readability of the filing receipts, larger fonts, USPTO consistent color layout. They should still feel familiar to most people, though. There's a 2-column layout with many of the same fields. So those are all improvements without being, I think, really more difficult to parse or read. It should feel familiar if you look at it. And finally, we have a summary sidebar. It has a continuous fee calculation, a summary of the application, including the number of classes, your mark, other fees that may be accruing. It shows you there on the side so you can see before you get to the end sort of what's happening and what shape will the application be taking. So I think after that discussion on the sort of what happened to make Trademark Center and the exhortation for you to try it and to give us your feedback, I'll turn it over to Kyle, who will now give us a demonstration of Trademark Center, including the application, some of the new features, and then at the end, we'll follow up with a Q&A.
Excellent.
Thank
Well, thank
you,
you very much, Matt. Again, my name is Kyle Ingram, and thank you, Matt, for all that information. Very helpful, very informative. And this is the Trademark Center demonstration portion of the presentation. But before we get into the actual hands-on nitty-gritty going through the filing system, I want to talk a little bit about some of the requirements, the features, and the differences between TEAS and Trademark Center. Many of you recognize this screen right here. This is the Create Your My USPTO account screen. But for those of you who are experienced practitioners, where your experience maybe lies somewhere other than trademarks, or if you're an experienced practitioner who's gone somewhere else for a little while and is returning to trademarks, first of all, welcome back. But in order to file a trademark application, and this is regardless of whether you're filing through TEAS or whether you're using the Trademark Center filing functionality, you do have to have that My USPTO account. And when you create a My USPTO account, you're going to have to assign a role to that account. You can see the 5 roles up there on the screen right now. The first one, trademark owner, that's going to be for pro se who are doing it on their own. The last one, interested party, that's going to be for TTAB proceedings. So the 3 that we're going to be dealing with today, a U.S. licensed attorney, Canadian attorney, and attorney support staff. Now you're going to want to create a USPTO account for each individual who's going to be accessing the system and working on applications. Having a community account for several different people isn't really going to work. And it's important that you select the correct role for your account because each role has different privileges and abilities. So the US licensed attorney and the Canadian attorney, they can file all the documents and they can share documents with sponsored attorney support staff. And those are going to be those draft applications that are in the Trademark Center docket. Now, the support staff role, they can assist with filing documents. They can actually originate applications, so they can create the application in their account and then share that with an attorney, provided they are sponsored by that attorney. In order to share any documents between accounts, the attorney role has to sponsor the support staff role individual. And there's no limit to how many individuals you can support. So don't think that if you're the attorney, you have to pick one paralegal and that's the only paralegal you get. No, you can sponsor all of the paralegals in your law firm. And I would encourage you to do so if you're going to be working with them. Similarly, a support staff individual can be sponsored by a number of different attorneys so that way you can kind of build this web through which you can send documents to be worked on. Now, presently, I say presently because it's a feature that we are working on, and I think Matt can speak more to the details of that because he's more involved with the development team. But we're working on a sharing functionality between attorneys. Right now, attorneys cannot share with other attorneys, but we do recognize that that is a feature and functionality that a lot of you will probably want. So it is something in the back of our mind. It is something we're working on, trying to get that figured out. And in order to sponsor an individual, you can go to the link at the bottom of this slide if you have the slides. If not, you can go to the Trademark Center landing page, and that's the one with the green button that says Trademark Center Beta that you click on in order to access Trademark Center. Go down to Identity verification for trademark filers. Click on that, and then that will bring you to this page right here. Click on the Trademark Sponsorship tool. That's going to bring a window up where you enter in the email address of the My USPTO account for that attorney support staff. And you can, again, enter as many as you need. Once you hit OK, that's going to sponsor those individuals and link them to the attorney account so that draft applications and documents can be shared between the two of them. Now, I want to take a moment to draw the distinction between the Trademark Center docket, which is the docket that's located within that Trademark Center homepage and system. And that's where you're going to see draft applications. That's where you're going to see all of the applications and registrations that you have filed through Trademark Center. And Trademark Docket, that's within the My USPTO page. And the Trademark Docket in the My USPTO page, as you can see on the screen right here, and which is accessible through the URL at the bottom of the slide, is going to allow you to store and monitor up to 1,000 applications and registrations. And what that does, here, I'll show you what happens. You click on Create a New Collection, name your collection. You can add any notes to it. Put all your application numbers, registration numbers, TTAB proceeding numbers, what have you, in here. And then whenever there is a status update with any of those, you will receive a notification. And that's incredibly useful if, for example, you've received a suspension letter in which there's a prior filed application that was cited against your client's mark as being a potential likelihood of confusion. You'll get that notification if, for example, that application abandons, and then you can jump right in and get the ball rolling on your client's application more quickly than if you weren't getting those notifications. So I think that's an incredibly useful tool, but I wanted to draw that distinction between the trademark docket with your My USPTO account and your docket within Trademark Center. So this is that landing page I was talking about. Some people call it the home page. I call it the landing page. The important thing is when you get here, you click the green button and that takes you into Trademark Center. I'll let you decide which one you want to call it. And then this is what the actual homepage / landing page is going to look like when you're in Trademark Center. So you see the actions up there. You can choose between new application and what I was discussing earlier, the View Trademarks docket. And that View Trademarks docket is going to take you to, again, all of the draft applications that you've created in here, as well as all of applications that you've already filed, registrations that you have, anything that's associated with this account. As long as you filed it through Trademark Center, you'll be able to access it through the View Trademarks docket button there. And we have some nice illustrations of the differences between TEAS and Trademark Center in terms of visually what they look like. Now, some attorneys, I'll be honest, have characterized Trademark Center when speaking with us as an oversimplification, as, well, there's the USPTO favoring pro se applicants over attorneys. And I just want to reiterate what Matt was saying, in that this isn't the case. TEAS, from a technological standpoint, it was obsolete. We were running out of ways to fix it, to keep it going into the future, and it had to go. And as we've rolled out Trademark Center, we had to start with a very foundational function to it. We couldn't have all the bells and whistles on it out of the gate. We needed to make sure that foundation was secure before we started building all of these additional features onto it that practitioners want. And one other thing to note, every year we have a whole new crop of law students who graduate from law school and they pass the bar, and a good chunk of them go into the practice of trademark law. Now, for those new attorneys, If we can provide them with a filing system that's clean, that's easy to use, that's intuitive, that's cloud-based, then they don't have to spend as much time learning the nuance and intricacies of outdated IT systems, and they can get right to work on the practice of trademark law. So, you know, I recognize that, it always stinks having to learn something new. Hopefully, when we go through the demonstration, a lot of you will be surprised by how easy it is to file an application through Trademark Center. I get that, we never want to spend time learning something new, but I think in the long run, this is going to be incredibly beneficial to uh, practitioners, to the USPTO, to applicants, and to everyone all around. So you can see right here with Trademark Center, it's a lot easier to know where to start. You have that home page I showed you where you can click on New Application or My Trademarks Docket. Right away, it's very apparent how you get the thing started. Once you're in the system itself, you can see the comparison between TEAS on the left and Trademark Center on the right, and just how clean that user interface is with Trademark Center. That doesn't really have kind of the cluttered text that you see with TEAS. It's very apparent the information that's being requested that you have to provide. You can see status bars on the top, on the left, and once we get into the demonstration, you'll see how that summary on the right-hand side actually works. And now finally, regardless of how you feel about TEAS versus Trademark Center, here's a feature that everyone can benefit from and everyone's going to like is that you can save drafts at any time in the platform as you go through the application process. So it has an auto save every 60 seconds, as well as a save draft button. And when you hit save, or when it does that auto save, it actually saves your application to the cloud. You don't have to download a file. You don't have to wait until the very end of the application to save it. You can save it as you're going along. And these stay in the system for up to a year. So if you're in the middle of filing an application and something else comes up, you have to leave for a little while for, 30 minutes, for 4 hours, for 3 weeks, for 3 months. If you come back to that application, it's going to be ready for you in your docket right where you left it. So with all of that out of the way, let's go to the actual demonstration. For those of you who don't have the links bookmarked, I'm going to show you how to access Trademark Center from our homepage. Hover over Trademarks, click on Apply Online. There you go. Click the green button, and you should be in. Now, I'm already logged in, so it did not prompt me for my USPTO account, but it will probably ask you for your login information. And once you're logged in, this is that homepage / landing page that I was talking about. So let's go ahead and start a new application. First thing you get is 5 bullet points here with information about the application process itself. As experienced practitioners, you probably know all of this already. But, if you want to take an extra 20 seconds to make sure that, yes, this is indeed something you already know and not new information, by all means, check it out. Once you're comfortable with those 5 bullet points of information, check the box down there, hit agree, and you are starting your application. Like I said, the first things that you notice is how much cleaner the user interface is. Up top, you have a status bar that's going to let you know and give you that visual representation of where you are in the process. Over on the left-hand side, you see that same status bar in a drop-down menu format. And as we'll see later on, one of the benefits to Trademark Center is that if you need to go back in the application or forward in the application, you're able to just click on this information here and it will immediately take you to that portion of the application. In my personal opinion, I think that's a little bit better than TEAS, where you had to click back, and then once you made the change or the fix that you wanted to make, click OK and keep clicking that to get back to where you were before. If you're someone that loves clicking the mouse, maybe this is a downgrade. But otherwise, if you prefer expediency and ease of use, I like what Trademark Center has to offer. So for this demonstration, we're going to be doing a TEAS Plus application. So we are going to hit Continue. Down here, you see the autosave function right here. If I want to save my draft, I get a little nervous when I'm inputting important information into the system. So I'm one of those folks that'll fill out like 2 fields and then go click Save Draft. And then I'll fill out 2 more fields and then click Save Draft. If that's how you want to do it, that's fine. The autosave works pretty well as well. And just a note, when you're saving these drafts, they are going up here to Drafts and Docket. So if you, in the middle of your application, have to run and you're going to pick it up later, you'll find that application in Drafts and Dockets, and you can continue where you left off. So let's hit Continue. And now if you are, if your My USPTO account has that attorney user role, you will see this button here that says Import My Info from My USPTO account. If you click on that, it auto-populates all of this information down to attorney email address. It's a convenience if you're just filling out one application. If you have several applications that you're filling out for a client, saving that time can be a real time saver. If you're thinking 3, 4, 5, 6 or more applications, and every time you get to the attorney information, you fill it out with 1 click, that's a real time saver. Now, I trust that everyone here is just a great person, incredibly trustworthy. However, I am logged into my personal My USPTO account and not my work account. So if I were to push this button and show you how it works, it would give everyone attending this webinar my personal home address. As much as I love you guys and trust you, I think I'm going to go ahead and manually fill that out for purposes of this demonstration. Now, if you have the attorney support role, if you're the paralegal, you are not going to have this functionality. So you will have to fill this out in much the same way I'm doing right now. You notice you do have to provide an attorney email address. You do not have to provide the phone number. You can add the docket number down here if you have a docket number. You notice a red asterisk means that you have to provide the information. So you have to check this, confirming that you are an active member in good standing of a bar. Fill out your bar information here. And if there are other appointed attorneys for the particular application, you would enter in their information right here. You hit continue. And this is where we identify the trademark owner. You'll notice that there are these pop-up windows right here. That is a feature that's more for a pro se applicant. So when they hit this particular portion of the application, we inform them a little bit of the significance of what they're filling out, what information they need to provide us with, and we'll provide a link to helpful information on our website. You all probably don't need that. You can click hide explanation and that will make that go away. Right now, we don't have any type of setting or feature that hides the explanations as a default. That might be something that we're looking into. If you're the attorney, maybe you don't want to see those little pop-up windows every time you're filing. Let's fill out some owner information. We'll say that the owner is an LLC. The owner here is going to be Kyle Kyleson. He has organized his LLC in Virginia. And down here, this is where you're going to see that mailing address versus domicile address. And if you recall, we have to have a mailing address for the public record for the application. So that's information that has to be provided. However, that can just be a mailing address, such as a PO box. We do need the principal address where a person resides or where the business is conducted. For individuals, for small businesses that are typically run out of the home, a lot of times that is that personal home address, and that's not something that the client wants out there on the public record. So we're just going to do a PO box here. That's countries. US is up at the top. That's states. So you can check this box if the domicile address is the same as the mailing address. You know, obviously, if the client has a brick and mortar store downtown somewhere, that's fine. That address can go in the public record. But for this one, the LLC is operating out of their home. So we're going to put the domicile address here. We need the owner email address. And we're good to move on. So you'll see, even though I have not been hitting save draft, we're still getting auto saved every 60 seconds. So we got an auto save while I was filling all of that out. You look here, check the correspondence information. You see that, yes, indeed, that's going to the attorney address. And over here, this is where you can select courtesy copies if you want them. I know some clients out there, they hire you and they want to be done with it. They said, listen, here's what I want done. Here's the check. Go do it. Don't even talk to me when it's done. There's other clients who really want to be involved in that process and ask you the questions and learn as they go. So if you've got one of those hands-on clients who wants to receive the office actions, the examiner's amendments, so on and so forth at the same time you do, you can put that here. So we're going to do hands-on client at domain.com. So now that you've entered in that, the courtesy copy will be sent to them as well. And this is where we select the actual mark that we want to register and hide that explanation if they're getting annoying. For this demonstration, we're just going to do a standard character mark. You can see stylized wording and designs down here. If you have a different format of the mark, you would click this button here. This is where we enter in the text for the mark. It asks if we need any translations. No. Is there a name or likeness issue with this? Click no. And then we get to selecting the appropriate filing basis. Just to show you what the system can do, I'm going to go down to multiple filing bases. Obviously, if you just have a 1A or just have a 1B, that's easy. You click one of those. And now that we've said we are going to be using multiple filing bases, we have to select which filing bases we're going to be assigning to goods and services. We're going to do 1A and 1B for this demonstration. And now it's time to identify the goods and services. So you can see right here, like we had in TEAS, the ID manual is baked into the filing system itself. So if, for example, we want to look up shirts, I was very, very careful when I typed that out because in the dry run, I forgot to type the R, and that made for some very interesting results. There you go. So this is going to bring up the ID manual. If you want a larger view of it, you just click Detailed View, and that's going to bring up a larger window with more fields that you can look at. If you want to select the goods in this window, you'll click the box and then Add Selection. And if you look over there on the right, you can see that we've got some stuff added to our summary. You can see the mark itself. You can see the goods and services there, class 25. We've added shirts, and you see the total cost for this. So that is, we have one class of a TEAS Plus application, $250. Let's just add pants. And now if you're fine with the smaller search window, you just click on the Add button right here. And look over there, it adds pants to the Summary tab. Now let's add backpacks. There we go. You see that? We added class 18, added that extra $250. In the running total down here, you'll see that total cost updated to $500. So we're going to move on. For purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to be using this mark with shirts, pants, and backpacks. If you need to edit the goods and services, if you added stuff that you didn't want to, you can click one of the trash cans down here to remove it, or you can click over here, and that'll give you the same options for removing goods and services that you've added inadvertently, or ones that you just don't necessarily want to have in the application right now. That's how you get rid of them. And this is where we assign the filing bases to the goods and services that we have selected. We're going to say some of my goods and services have different filing bases. The class 18, we're going to make those R1B. And our class 25, we're going to make those 1A. Now, if you want to assign filing bases to goods within a class, you hit that little drop down right there. If you just select this box right here, it's going to apply that filing basis to all of your goods or services in that class. So drop down if you want to divide within the class. Just click the box there if you want it to apply to that entire class. So next up, it's going to ask us for the specimen for the class 25 goods because that is what we said were our 1A goods. We'll add the specimen. Our mark is T marky. So I am going to add this right here as our specimen. So you see you have T marky on the collar of the shirt, on the hang tag, and over the breast. All three are acceptable places to have the applied for mark in a specimen for shirts. Click on the file that you want to upload as your specimen. So you see here, obviously a description of the specimen is not required. Sometimes it's helpful. In this particular instance, it's obvious that the goods are shirts. The mark is clearly on there, so it wouldn't need a description. If the specimen isn't totally clear, maybe you want to throw that in there. So you could just say mark on hang tag for shirts, just to be safe. Date of first use anywhere. I'm just going to say 2020. You don't need the link or the date of access because it's not a web page specimen. Click on the goods that the specimen applies to. Click Save Specimen, and there you go. You now have your specimen for the 1A goods. Hit Continue. It'll ask you a lot of questions about claiming ownership of active prior registrations, disclaimers, so on and so forth. Some of these are the TEAS Plus questions. Some of them are just in there to make sure that you haven't missed something. Obviously, that's more for the pro se applicants. Then you get to this point where you can review and edit the application. So scroll through everything here. Make sure your owner information, mailing address, domicile address, make sure that's good to go. Click on the trademark details. There you go, standard character, T marquee. Your goods and services. 1A goods and services, shirts and pants. There we go. 1B, backpacks. Supporting information. You can hit that drop-down window. That'll pull up the JPEG of the specimen that you provided. If everything looks good, you can hit continue. If there is an error, and in retrospect, I probably should have intentionally done something wrong, just so you could see what the error looks like. All of these green checks over here, one of them will be a circle, a red circle with a red exclamation point in it. And that's going to be your way of knowing that the error is located there. So let's just say it was in correspondence information. So if that's where the error was, I can click on that. I could fix whatever it is that's here. And then once I fix that, go back to review and sign. So there you go. That's the little error message. If you see that in the body of any of those other categories above, that means that something there needs to be fixed. So we're going to go to the declaration and signature section. And you have 3 different ways of signing the application. The easiest, obviously, is sign directly. You just scroll through here, click on all of this, add your signature. The date will auto-populate. Put your name in there. And then add your position. Boom. That's nice and easy. But that's not how we always sign those. You can also upload your signed declaration. And what that's going to do is if you scroll down, you're going to put in your name and the position and generate signature form. What that'll do is that'll generate a PDF that you can sign with a pen, and then you can scan it and then upload it that way. If you have that preference for hand signing the document. Signing it directly within the filing system accomplishes the same thing, but you know, there are folks that are old school. They prefer to put that pen on paper, put the signature there that way. And if that's you, well, we have that option available. You also can send the application to someone else to sign. And for that, you'll put your name here. And then enter the email address where you would like to receive the link. For this, you will want to put in your own address so that that link gets sent to you. And then you will forward that on to your client to sign. And one important feature on this page is the download application preview. So you'll recall in TEAS, there was view input table and the text form. So that's been consolidated here in the download application preview. Click on that and see if that will pull up for me. There we go. And right here, you have a much clearer and more concise version of everything that was in that filing system. So it's nice and easy to read. You can see the trademark details up here, owner information here, goods and services, specimen information, additional statements, we had none, the attorney information, so on and so forth. And this is, it's a great document to download and save and send along to the client so that they can review it before they sign. or, maybe you want it for your own records. It's there for that purpose as well. So I am, just for the purpose of finishing this, going to sign it directly. And then we will get into sharing draft applications. Perfect. There we go. Now we're at the pay and submit page. This is where you would pay the fee and submit the application. But that's not what we want to do yet. Now we want to send this around for review, maybe get a little bit more work done. And to do that, we click on Drafts and Docket right up here. So you see, this is that application that we just completed. T. Markey, owner name Kyle Kyleson. And if we want to send this to one of those sponsored attorney staff, we click on Send. And you notice you get this warning. It says, the feature allows another user to edit your draft. You won't be able to track their changes or undo them. So what that means is that you're not going to be able to track the changes or undo all of the changes with a single button. Obviously, when you get this application back, you can do whatever you want with it. You can certainly undo any changes, but it's not as easy as flipping a switch. So let's just say, yes, I would like to share this with my paralegal. It brings up this window. You select who you want to send the draft to. I have test user 2. And I send this to them. You notice two things when you send the draft application. You get this notice up here that says you successfully sent the draft, and down here, remove and view, which is how you would delete the application or view the application to go back in it, are grayed out. And the reason for that is only one user can access the application at a time. So you can only have one person in the system making changes at a time. If you decide, oh shoot, I need that application back, you have two options. So you can either contact the person that you sent it to, ask them to send it back, or if you need it back immediately, you can hit recall. Now, if you hit recall, that's going to pull it back immediately. And if that other person is still working on it, there's not, like, any changes that they make after you hit recall aren't going to be saved. So you're kind of pulling the rug out from under them a little bit if they're in the middle of working on it. Again, you can decide if it's necessary to do that or if you just want to ask them to send it back. Here, we'll hit the recall draft. And now it's back in our docket and we can do all of the changes. Now, like I said before, both the attorney role and the attorney support staff role can originate an application. So if you are the attorney support staff role, you can do everything we just did in terms of creating the application and then sending it on to the attorney for review. Just wanted to clarify that in case you're thinking that only the attorneys can start an application. Now, I think with that, we've wrapped up the demonstration portion. We talked a little bit about the requirements to get into Trademark Center and use it. We talked about the features and functionality, how it differs from TEAS, how it represents an improvement upon TEAS, where we're going with some of these functions, and then how to actually get into the system and get it done to file an application. So with that, I think, I assume we have questions. I'm going to go ahead and kick it back to Marisa.
Fantastic, Kyle. Thank you so much. Oh, yes, we have a lot of questions, and I'm wanting to get started. I'm going to have, so we've got both of our experts here. Wonderful. Let's start off with a question. I think this is from Charles, who's asking, let me see, will Trademark Center enable functionality for practitioners to auto-load fields to streamline repetitive filing tasks? Like before, we had this OBJ file as an option that allowed you to kind of create a template of sorts. Is that a feature that's going to be part of this new Trademark Center, this new system that we're using to file applications? What do you think, Matt?
So good question. Lots of people now know the extension OBJ and talk about OBJ files as though it's a child. It's been a very important part of the TEAS filing process. For many years, it was the only way to save and send these things around. We are not going to continue the OBJ download process, so there won't be a downloadable version. However, there are ways, as we've just seen, to share the drafts online, and we're also planning on rolling out other enhancements, such as being able to make a quick copy of a file. And so, our initial thinking on that is that it'll copy all the information out except for the mark information, because typically with the use case of copens, we'd expect the mark to change and maybe the other information would stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still in the research and design phases of that, and we're actually talking to some of you about that and how that would work out for you. So that is a feature to look forward to coming in the near future, a little bit later this year. But there won't be any more return to the OBJs.
Okay, well, bidding a fond farewell to the OBJ files. Okay, you either loved them or hated them, but we do remember them well. Okay, so what about, here's another question. We had a couple of questions talking about comparing the filing functionality of the Trademark Center to the Patent Center. So here's a question from Dorothy. Is there a way to file a test trademark application in Trademark Center similar to the test site that that folks use for Patent Center? This might be another question for Matt.
So not yet. We do have a prototype of that, but we haven't released it yet. But that is something that we're also looking at.
Okay. All right. Well, Kyle, we got to get you into this conversation as well, right? I mean, So some folks are curious now. They love the fact that you're doing a demo today, but when is this system going to be mandatory for filing trademark applications?
Sorry, I went real blurry there for a second.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think I'm back.
Okay.
So
Try to,
yes,
okay. Mm-hmm.
right now it is optional. It is in beta. Obviously, we think it's in great working condition. We've had a lot of people successfully file through Trademark Center, but yes, it is optional right now. The plan is to, as we build upon that functionality and as this becomes capable of doing everything that we can do with filing applications, we phase out TEAS. So we're aiming for beginning of the year, next year, and Matt, jump in if that's wrong. We don't have a specific date. We want to make sure that everything's good to go for the rollout. We don't want to do it prematurely, but right now that's our target, is beginning of the year next year.
Okay, Matt, you want to add anything to that?
No, that's right. If you've been able to find the Trademark Center webpage, so if you go to TEAS, the Apply Online page, you'll see a banner at the top. That gives you some links, has a green Trademark Center button. There's also a slightly harder to find link to the Trademark Center webpage, but that has a lot of information on there, including our target date of early January. So that is the TEAS retirement for the initial application forms only, responses, request for reconsideration, the CAR forms, which is a slightly different issue we'll address when we get to that. All those other forms will still be there and available for use. But the initial application form retirement plan is early January.
Early January. Okay, so still a little bit more time for you to get acclimated to the new system. We encourage you to continue using it and sending us your feedback so we can continue to make improvements to the system. Okay, here's a question from Hayes, who's curious about the USPTO, the myuspto.gov accounts that are needed. The question is, do I need a separate USPTO account for the Patent Center and then another separate USPTO account for the Trademark Center? Well, what do we think? Matt, you want to take that one as well?
I can grab that.
Okay.
We saw a lot of these types of questions, so let me wrap up a few of them.
Oh, please do.
The USPTO.gov account is going to work across the board for all USPTO systems. Now, each system might require you to specify a role. For example, TEAS and Trademark Center. If you don't have one currently for trademarks, will ask you, are you a trademark attorney? Are you a trademark owner? What is your role? And the reason we ask the role is because different people have different needs, different obligations, and different capabilities in the system. And we want to make sure that we're matching those up with the right people. So it'll ask you to specify your role. And once you specified it, that's going to be good for trademark systems and also for TTAB systems. In terms of the roles between patents and trademarks, they don't match up one-to-one. So each system will have a different interface for you there. And it could also be true of other systems, like fee payment doesn't currently have roles. If it does, they would be implemented separately. So for trademarks things, once you have a USPTO.gov account and you have a filing role, you should be good to go. Trademark Center, TEAS, TTAB Center, all of those things. Sponsorship also between patent side and trademark side, again, the rules are a little different, so we can't do a blanket sponsorship policy. And if we do at some point overcome some policy hurdles, then technologically we may explore that too. But for now, those are separate sponsorship paths. So if you are a trademark attorney and you're verified, you can go into patents and also be considered to be verified, but you'll need to tell them you're a patent attorney and sponsor patent paralegals separately in there.
Okay, Matt, while you knocked out 4 of my questions, okay, let me get myself
together. We got a lot of questions.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for doing that. Here's one I think you did not answer. How about this? Can we use free text? You know, this ability to draft your own text. Maybe when we're talking about the ID portion of filing in the Trademark Center. Can we type free text in? We didn't see that option in the demonstration that Kyle gave us. Kyle, you want to answer that one? That might be one for you.
Absolutely. So the reason that you didn't see that in the demonstration that I gave was because we just did the TEAS Plus application,
Right.
and in TEAS Plus, you have to select the IDs from our ID manual. If instead on that very first page, before you enter anything at all, you hit TEAS Standard, then when we got to that page where you're putting in the identification of goods and services, you would have that ability to type in the free text.
Okay, perfect. And also just clarifying that what we're talking about is Trademark Center is going to be a giant platform for us. We're going to be using it to do all sorts of things, one of which is filing, which is what we're demonstrating. And so we're just really talking about this filing component of Trademark Center. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, what about, this is from Jonathan, inquiring about like if he already had some applications that were filed in their docket previously, is that something that he can transfer now to the Trademark Center docket so that he can see them all in one place? Is that automatic?
So no.
No.
And I'll explain a little more about that. But
Thank you.
right now what we do is we automatically, if you apply in Trademark Center, carries over to your docket. It's also connected to the accounts that have securely been in touch with it. And we don't have our full account security policy updates rolled out, and we won't for a little while. But what this will do is it will ensure that the right people who have proper authority to can come in and file without locking out people who haven't been in the system before. But so those who you will have an advantage down the road by starting your application in Trademark Center, because we collect more information about the accounts associated with it to allow them access in the future. That's not true for TEAS applications, and they won't be automatically put into that docket because TEAS doesn't know exactly, it does not track, you know, the connection between the filing and then storing it with the person who's filing it. Trademark Center does. So for that reason, if you are interested in building your docket, it's good to start now in Trademark Center and do applications sooner rather than later. Now, will you be able to use the docket to do work down the road and other filings that we haven't yet developed? Yes, you will. So for example, if you know you need to, if there's a TEAS application you've already made and it's suspended, and you know in several months when the response form is available in Trademark Center, you want to use that, you'll be able to use Trademark Center to respond. But it's not going to automatically populate your docket for you like it does with the current system.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. additional information. Now, what about our friends who have work dockets of over like 1,000 applications? We got a question from ST Shore inquiring about how long will Trademark Center retain the application registration information? So if you're filing at least 1,000 new applications per user quarterly, will the application still be accessible in Trademark Center? Is there a cap now on the number of dockets that you can have open?
As Kyle mentioned, for the drafts, those right now, our current plan is to have drafts be available for a year. We also plan on having the drafts be updatable through a validation check. Remember, if you use the OBJ files, remember they would break every so often. They would break when there were ID dates, ID manual updates. They would break when there were changes to technology. They would break with TEAS version updates. We no longer need to break them because we can revalidate the information in the saved draft. So the current plan is to save those drafts for a year unless the customer wants to delete them.
Mhm.
If they delete them, they're not retained anywhere. They're just deleted. Now, for registrations or things that you might have in your docket, applications that are pending, there is no plan that there would be a time cutoff for those. So 20 years down the road, when me and Trademark Center are retiring, you'll have a very lengthy docket with everything you've done in that 20 years. You'll be able to filter, sort, time gate, do other things to cut down on the number of things in there. But there's not a time cutoff planned for our future docket enhancements.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these user roles, okay? You know, we had a couple of questions in the chat on WebEx about from paralegals who are curious about their roles. So why are user roles required? Do they have different functionality or something like that? What's the purpose of them?
Yeah, user roles are required because they do have different functionality and they reflect the different posture of what that party needs to do for the USPTO. So for example, attorneys are allowed to sponsor support staff, and the support staff have to be, when they work, they have to be working under the direction of that attorney. So there's a different relationship there. So they will have different capabilities in the filing system. Owners are generally going to be filing on their own behalf. So they don't have a need to participate in sponsorship. And for now, we don't have the ability to share among owners. We'll evaluate if that's something that needs to be rolled out, but typically, I'll grab an e-signature line of questions that I've seen. We have a variety of electronic signature options that are relatively easy to do, and they don't require the customer who's signing to log in. They can confirm the information and enter their signature only, and then return it to the person who's filling it out for them. So in most cases, that's going to be, the owner setting, for example, might be paralegal working at a small company who does not work under the supervision of an attorney, but is asked directly by the owner of the company to file a trademark. That person is entitled to do so. In that case, though, they would choose the owner role because they aren't going to be able to achieve sponsorship, and they're filing as an extension of the owner. They can send it to the owner for signature. The owner doesn't need to have an ID verified role or even a USPTO.gov account. The owner can simply sign in a variety of ways and then return it to that paralegal for submission. So that's one example of how that might work out. But in order to comply with our rules, we want to make sure that people are choosing the right roles. We've had to cancel and suspend and take action on many, many applications and registrations simply because they weren't filed following the correct rules and were invalidated. And we want to avoid that to the extent possible.
Correct. And folks will notice that Jay, our fantastic producer today, is adding into the chat a link to our website showing where you can learn more about your trademark user roles, some of the roles and responsibilities right at that link. Just scroll on down and there's some drop downs for you to navigate further to get some answers. So speaking about user roles, here's another one. Can a U.S. licensed attorney direct her paralegal to sign her name to an application? Now, Kyle, I think you got this one. What do you think? Can a U.S. licensed attorney direct her paralegal to sign her name to an application?
I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go with that attorney needs to be signing the application themselves.
That's right. Signatures are non-delegable. And so we just want to confirm that everyone knows that. So check that user role link to get some more information. And Matt, you mentioned something about, like, let's say that I, completed my set up my USPTO.gov verification. I went through the whole process, but I selected the wrong user role. Can I change that? Can I go back? What do I do?
You can't change it on your own, but you can contact TEAS@uspto.gov and ask for that account to be reset. It
Okay.
will reset your role and your ID verification. You'll need to link it back up with your ID.me account if you've done that before, or resubmit a paper verification. If you link it back up with your ID.me account, all you have to do is log into your ID.me account, confirm that you're you, and then you're good to go. Otherwise, you do need to re-verify if you choose the paper route. But yes, you can change those roles. And we're also planning on making it a little easier for people to see when they're logged in, to check the role and know if they've got the right one. Now, there are some shortcuts to knowing if you have the right role. If you know what the sponsorship tool is, it's at teas.uspto.gov/sponsorship. You can go there and it will tell you if you are an attorney or if you are a sponsored support staff. It will also tell you if you are an owner, because you won't be able to access it. But we're also working at putting in, you know what, you guys have been so great today. Are the comments still on?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Chat's still up.
Do you guys want a little sneak preview? You want to see something it's
Oh,
not there yet?
absolutely.
Are we
Yes.
okay with that? All right.
Yes. That's why we're here, to get the scoop.
All right. So this is dangerous. This is a test environment, and this is a live webinar. So anything can happen. First thing you'll notice that in our test environment, we've got a slightly different approach to the layout of the Trademark Center homepage.
Are you sharing, Matt? Let me interrupt you
I
for
was
just a
trying
moment.
to, hold on.
We don't see it. We don't see it.
There we go.
All right. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Teams requires so many fewer buttons to do this. All right, so now you're seeing a slightly different view than we saw before. This is called a card view. We'll be adding cards in as we consolidate functions from other parts of trademarks into Trademark Center. You can see here, we're focusing on what you can do and not what is the filing system, what is the document retrieval system. So it's more, what's the search system, but what can you do, right? So if you want to search, this will take you to TN Search. If you want to view your docket, it will take you into Trademark Center, but the docket view. So we'll be adding more cards in the future. This is our first proposed update coming next month. You'll also see that we'll put our notifications front and center. These include new features that are coming and a link to the page describing them, announcements that the system has to go down or there will be some change to it, and then release notes. So when we update things, you know what changed and when. Here we also have recent drafts. These allow me to look at the last 3 drafts that I created and jump right back to them. So I don't even need to go through the, view my docket or apply to register. I can click right on it and jump back into the middle of the application where I left off. And then finally, these are similar to what we've got currently at the bottom, other helpful links. In this, I'll go to the application actually, and well, I'll jump into one that I know is mostly complete, so we don't have to review that. You'll see here that I've got a new settings option at the top, right? Mm-hmm. And these settings here are something that we're also working on. But this goes to one of the things that we talked about, some feedback that we got in order to scroll through the application more quickly and avoid some of the help text. Here you can see you can hide the explanation, but that's a manual choice, takes time, and it's not persistent. You can go to My Settings. You can shrink it down, so you still can keep your place in the application and know where the information is. All right, there it is, shrunk down a little bit, or I suspect a popular one among practitioners, do not show that text. That'll be a persistent setting that goes through this application. So all the top explanations would be hidden. There will be other view updates. and then also the drafts and docket. You will gain the ability to make duplicates or make copies of your filings, and then name them, give them names. So name your drafts and also take notes that you can share with others when you share the file. All right, I've tempted the fates long enough. I will stop sharing.
That was really helpful. It's always great to get a sneak peek at what's coming. So thank you for sharing that information. Here's a question. I'm going to toss this one to Kyle. If you populate attorney information from your myuspto.gov account, can you edit the form? For example, myuspto, your account uses your work email, but for applications, you want to use a different email. How do you do that? What do you do?
So, yes, that is a great question. And I didn't want to give anyone the wrong idea. So it's not like if you hit that populate the information or import my info from my USPTO account, that's set in stone and locked in and you can't change any of that. You absolutely can change that. So, if everything is correct except the email address, well, you can hit that import my info and it'll fill out everything. And then you just go down and you manually change that email address, which kind of led to a couple other questions. I apologize. I could not keep track of all the questions. They would pop up for like half a second as a little blue box in the corner of my presentation. So if I'm not getting to your question, I apologize. I'm not trying to ignore you. It was just difficult to see everything that was coming through. In terms of functionality of this importing the information from the MyUSPTO account, I don't know if or when we might enable paralegals and support staff to do that as well. And again, I don't want to get in front of Matt because he works a lot more closely with the developers and he'll know better than I do. It does kind of seem to me like if you are the paralegal at the law firm and you're importing your MyUSPTO information, most of that will be sort of close to what the attorneys would be, and you could just change the attorney name, maybe even the email. But again, I don't know what our timeline looks like for that, if we're testing functionality, if there's something wrong with implementing that type of functionality. I'll kick it to Matt after this question. And then I also wanted to answer one other question. I know Marisa did not ask this, but it was a little one that I saw pop up. Someone had mentioned, hey, why does Kyle get 2 accounts? What's going on? The first account, the one that I'm in, my personal one, was one that I created a little while back. And then there is another account that's associated with me as a USPTO employee. And that auto logs into all of the USPTO systems as soon as I log into my work computer. Truth be told, it's a pretty useless account in terms of doing anything in these systems, but it is sort of an account that exists out there in the ether. So that's why I have 2 accounts. I don't know about someone else on the outside getting 2 accounts or not.
Understood. We're sort of closing down on our time, but I don't want to leave my friends out who have sent some questions via email. Here's one from Clint and Matt. I'm just going to try to sneak this in. If you're filing multiple applications where everything is the same but the mark, right? We know we talked about OBJ files before, OBJ files, and being able to use them as somewhat of a template. Are you able to copy a prior application in this new in the Trademark Center and just update the mark? Is there any way to use your draft applications in that way, like to reuse them?
So I mentioned this, I think, a little bit earlier, but
Okay.
we are working on the ability to add this. So I'm sure you've all been paying close attention to our release schedule. About every month, we put out a fairly large update with some new stuff. So we've got a mid-October update planned, and some of what I showed you on the screen will be in that update. The copying of drafts, I do not believe is going to be in the October update, so that's more probably a November timeframe. But yeah, we're planning on doing that, and it'll just sort of be go to your docket, one-click copy. Makes a copy of whatever you've got filled out currently. It just won't copy the mark information over. we get more than you would think, a lot of duplicate applications, and those can cause problems, especially if they're not detected right away. So we really want to cut down on exact duplicates. So that mark information won't copy over, but everything else will.
Okay, and last question. This is from Marie, also in the email. There used to be an option to submit the application without a signed declaration and to provide a PDF declaration signed by the client, like a wet signature you uploaded. Is that an option still available?
Yes, both. All the same options that you'd have in TEAS.
Great. Okay. We're just a few minutes out. I'm going to go ahead and end our wonderful Q&A section of this presentation. I know we could go on forever and a day because there's so many wonderful things about this Trademark Center filing process that we could review, but we don't have any additional time, and we want to respect everyone else's time. So before we conclude today's presentation, let me go ahead and say a special thank you to my attorney experts, Matt Schwab and Kyle Ingram, for leading our discussion and for presenting all of this valuable information. We really appreciate it. Special thank you to my manager, Jason Lott, who's the managing attorney of the Trademarks Customer Outreach Office. He's traveling, but you know he's also tuned in and right here to be of assistance to us. We really appreciate it. And Brandy Hill, our coordinator for Trademarks Customer Outreach. Thank you so much. And of course, our event producer, Jay Kim. I also want to draw your attention to just a few more reminders. In case you missed these in the beginning, let me say them again. Around 3:30 p.m. today, Eastern Time, you will receive an email from Salesforce that contains the following: a link to a survey. It's going to only take you 3 to 4 minutes, we promise. We always want to hear your feedback on what's working and what's not. You're also going to receive a link to our presentation slides. If you're in Teams, you can snag that link right now in the chat. If you're in WebEx, you also should have received a link to those slides there, but we'll be sending those out again via Salesforce. We'll be posting a recording of the webinar on uspto.gov and on YouTube in about 3 weeks or so. So hang in here with us as we finalize this presentation and get everything ready so that we can go ahead and upload this information. And finally, we've applied for CLE credit in Virginia. Once we receive approval, we will email that documentation to our attendee list, and that documentation is going to include instructions on how you can apply for CLE credit inside Virginia, outside of Virginia. Okay, so you'll have information for Virginia, of course, but then how to apply if you're have bar credentials in states outside of Virginia. My name is Marisa Terrell. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. If you're curious about what other wonderful events we have listed, please take a look at our webpage. Go right on over to uspto.gov and click events. Type that in the search bar and you will find us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.